Imagine standing in front of a mirror every morning. You see your reflection. But what you don't realize is that the mirror of your mind shapes that reflection far more than the glass in front of you. Every thought you hold becomes a brushstroke painting the canvas of your reality. If your mind is chaotic, life feels chaotic. If your mind is disciplined, life feels balanced. The truth is simple: your thoughts create the lens through which you experience the world. The question is, are you in control of that lens, or is it controlling you? Today, I want to share with you 6 powerful principles that will help you control your thoughts and, ultimately, change your life. These are not abstract ideas. They are tools you can apply starting today. Awareness is not just the first step. It is the foundation upon which every transformation in your life rests. Imagine a river that flows beneath the earth, unseen, carving pathways through rock and soil, shaping landscapes silently. That river is your mind. It is always moving, always carrying with it fragments of your experiences, your fears, your hopes, and your memories. And yet, most people live unaware of this flow. They are swept along by its current without ever realizing they can learn to navigate it. The reality is stark. You cannot control what you cannot see. Thoughts, when left in the shadows, gain power over you. They dictate your emotions, influence your choices, and ultimately shape your reality. This is why so many people live in quiet suffering, trapped in loops of worry about the past or fears of a future that hasn't yet arrived. They wake up anxious without knowing why, because the storm within them is hidden beneath the surface. To break free, you must first bring light to that darkness. Awareness is like turning on a lamp in a dimly lit room. Suddenly, you see the furniture, the corners, the doorways. Things that once made you stumble become clear. In the same way, when you become aware of your thoughts, you stop stumbling blindly through your inner world. You begin to see the patterns that have ruled you for years. Start with something simple: observation without judgment. Do not label your thoughts as good or bad. Do not try to change them right away. Just watch them, the way you might watch clouds drifting across the sky. You cannot control the clouds, and yet by observing them, you understand the direction of the wind. Similarly, when you observe your thoughts, you begin to sense the direction of your mind. The moment you feel anxiety rising in your chest, pause and ask, what am I thinking right now? Do not rush through the question. Give it space. Let the answer surface gently. Perhaps you will find that you are replaying an old argument. Perhaps you are worrying about a deadline or imagining the worst possible outcome of an event. Whatever it is, name it. Say to yourself, this is worry, this is fear, this is judgment. When you name the thought, you create distance. You shift from being the thought to being the observer of the thought. That single shift changes everything, because the observer holds the power that the thinker often forgets. Science confirms what philosophy has known for centuries. A Harvard study found that the average person spends 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they are doing. Almost half of life is lived somewhere else, lost in memories of the past or fantasies of the future. And what happens when your mind wanders? It drifts toward the negative, toward worries, toward regrets. This is mental noise, and it drowns out the music of the present moment. Awareness cuts through that noise. It brings you back to now, the only place where life truly happens. Consider how this plays out in everyday life. A person might walk into a room filled with friends, but feel disconnected because their mind is trapped in a silent argument from yesterday. Another might sit down to dinner and never taste the food because they are rehearsing tomorrow's meeting in their head. Awareness changes that. It says, come back. Taste the meal. Hear the laughter. Feel the life that is here, not the life that exists only in thought. There is a quiet strength that comes when you master awareness. Problems still exist, challenges still arise, but you no longer drown in them. You begin to notice the first ripple of fear before it becomes a tidal wave. You see the spark of anger before it becomes a fire, and because you see it early, you can choose. That is the secret. Awareness gives birth to choice. Without awareness, you are a prisoner of your thoughts. With awareness, you hold the key to your own mind. You realize that thoughts are not commands, they are suggestions. They do not define you unless you let them, and this realization, that you are the observer, not the storm, marks the beginning of freedom. The mind is a creature of habit, and nothing illustrates this truth more clearly than the power of repetition. Every single day, you entertain thousands of thoughts. Most of them are not new. They are echoes of yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. The thoughts you allow to repeat are the ones that eventually take root and grow into beliefs. And those beliefs, they shape the reality you live in. Think about this: when a thought enters your mind, it does not carry power on its own. It is like a seed. Left untouched, it might drift away. But when you water it with attention, when you allow it to play again and again in your mind, that seed takes root. Repeat a thought long enough, and it becomes your truth. If you constantly repeat to yourself, I'm not good enough, your mind will not argue with you. It will become your loyal servant. It will search for proof to validate what you keep telling it. Every mistake will feel bigger, every criticism sharper, every failure final. But the reverse is equally true. If you repeat, I am capable, I am resourceful, I can learn, your mind will find ways to support that as well. Suddenly, setbacks become lessons instead of verdicts. Challenges become puzzles instead of walls. Your mind is not a judge, it is an architect. It builds with the materials you provide, and repetition is the raw material of your inner world. This is not mere theory, it is the foundation of human behavior. Habits of thought become habits of action. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is malleable. It rewires itself based on repeated experiences and repeated ideas. When you say something often enough, neurons fire together, pathways strengthen, and soon the thought becomes automatic. This is why so many people live trapped in the same patterns year after year, not because they cannot change, but because they repeat the same stories about themselves over and over again. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. Before the light bulb illuminated the world, darkness tested his resolve over 1,000 times. He could have looked at every failure and said, I am not smart enough. I am a failure. If he had repeated that thought, history would be very different today. But he didn't. When asked about his failures, he said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Do you see what he did? He repeated a thought that kept him moving forward. I'm learning. That simple repetition didn't just protect his mind. It built the persistence that changed the world. Now think about your own life. What do you repeat to yourself every day? When you wake up in the morning, when you look in the mirror, when you make a mistake. What is the sentence that echoes in your mind? Because whatever it is, that is what you are building. If you say, nothing ever works out for me, your mind will gladly collect evidence of failure and present it to you as proof. If you say, I am resilient, I can adapt, your mind will start scanning for solutions instead of problems. It is not magic, it is focus. Your thoughts are like light. Whatever you shine them on becomes clearer, stronger, more defined. And repetition is like holding that light steady until what was once faint becomes undeniable. This is why affirmations work. Not because the words themselves hold power, but because repeated words direct your attention, and where attention goes, energy flows. But repetition is a double-edged sword. It will work against you if you let negative thoughts play on loop. That is why awareness must come first. You have to notice what is repeating, what is shaping you silently day after day. Once you see it, you can choose differently. You can plant new seeds and water them with intention. And yes, at first it will feel strange when you have told yourself for years that you are not enough. Saying, "I am capable," might sound like a lie. But it is not a lie. It is a new truth being born, and like all births, it requires time and persistence. So the question is not whether repetition works. It always works. The real question is, what are you repeating? Are you rehearsing your pain, or are you practicing your power? Every word, every thought, every quiet sentence you whisper to yourself is building your future. And the future is nothing more than the past repeated. Unless you decide to repeat something new. So much of what we experience as truth is not truth at all. It is an interpretation shaped by our fears, insecurities, and old wounds. The mind is not a neutral observer, it is a storyteller. It weaves narratives around every event, every word, every glance. You see your boss frown during a meeting, and without hesitation, your mind whispers, "He hates me. I must have done something wrong." Yet, what is the fact? The fact is only this: your boss frowned. Everything else, the judgment, the conclusion, the emotional storm, is a story you created. This is the nature of thought. It fills the gaps between what is known and what is unknown with assumptions, and those assumptions are rarely neutral. They are colored by the shadows of past experiences. If once in your life you were made to feel unworthy, that old memory still breathes in your present. If you faced rejection, even in small doses, your mind carries that scar like a sensitive wound. And so, when something ambiguous happens, the mind rushes to protect you by giving it meaning, usually a meaning that aligns with your deepest fears. This is why two people can experience the same event and walk away with entirely different realities. One person receives silence and thinks, "They're ignoring me." Another receives the same silence and thinks, "They're probably busy." Which one is true? Neither. Or perhaps both. But neither can be proven until reality speaks for itself. Until then, what you are living in is not reality. It is interpretation. And interpretation, when left unchecked, can become a prison. Most suffering does not come from life itself. It comes from the stories we tell about life. Think of a time you lay awake at night, replaying a conversation in your head, imagining what someone thought of you, building entire scenarios out of a single sentence. Hours pass and your heart pounds, your chest tightens, your body reacts as if danger were real, yet nothing has happened. Only a story has happened. And the more you believe it, the more real it feels. This is how anxiety grows, not from facts, but from interpretations rehearsed so many times they become indistinguishable from truth. So how do you break free from this? With a single, powerful question: what do I know for sure? Not what I think, not what I fear, not what I assume. What do I know? When you ask this question, you pull the rug from under your assumptions. Suddenly, the swirling storm of thought slows down. You realize, what I know is that my boss frowned. That is all. Everything else is imagination. That realization is freedom. It doesn't solve every problem, but it saves you from creating problems that never existed. Try this the next time your mind starts building castles out of smoke. Someone doesn't reply to your message. Instantly the story begins. They're upset with me. I did something wrong. They don't care. Pause. Ask yourself, what do I know for sure? The answer might be, what I know is that they haven't responded yet. That's it. Just that. Everything else is a story. And most stories, if left unchecked, become self-fulfilling. If you believe someone is angry with you, you might withdraw, speak coldly, or become defensive. And in doing so, you create the very distance you feared. This question, what do I know for sure, is like sunlight breaking through a foggy morning. It clears the haze and lets you see what is actually there, not what you imagine to be there. And with clarity comes peace. You stop reacting to illusions. You stop fighting battles that exist only in your head. You stop exhausting yourself over meanings that were never true to begin with. This is not to say that interpretations are always wrong. Sometimes your instincts are right, and the stories you tell align with reality. But until you know for sure, hold your conclusions lightly. Do not chain yourself to them. Live in the openness of, I don't know yet. That space, the space of not knowing, is uncomfortable, but it is honest. And honesty with yourself is the beginning of wisdom. The next time you feel hurt, anxious, or afraid, remember this: the mind is a master of fiction. It can write tragedies out of ordinary moments. Do not take every thought as gospel. Question it. Gently, curiously, without judgment. Because the truth is rarely the loudest voice in your head. Often truth waits quietly behind the noise, asking only that you pause long enough to hear it. What you allow into your mind determines the shape of your reality, just as surely as the food you eat shapes your body. Every image, every word, every idea that enters your awareness is a seed, and those seeds grow. Some grow into strength, clarity, and purpose. Others grow into fear, doubt, and bitterness. And just like the body becomes unhealthy when fed on junk food, the mind becomes polluted when it feeds on noise, fear, and trivial distractions. Look around you. The world is loud. News headlines scream disaster after disaster because fear sells. Social media algorithms flood your feed with outrage because anger keeps you scrolling. Even the conversations you have, filled with gossip, criticism, or empty complaints, drip poison into your mental stream without you noticing. You may think you are simply passing time, but every headline you read, every toxic post you linger on, every negative discussion you entertain is quietly shaping how you think and how you feel. Imagine a person who spends the first hour of every morning scrolling through news stories of violence, corruption, and tragedy. They tell themselves they are just staying informed. But what they are really doing is planting seeds of anxiety and helplessness before the day even begins. Now imagine another person who spends that same hour reading a book that expands their understanding or listening to a conversation that challenges them to grow. Both people will face the same world outside their door, but their inner world will be entirely different. One will walk into the day heavy with fear, the other grounded in strength and clarity. This is the power of your mental diet. It is not an exaggeration to say it can change the trajectory of your life. The mind is astonishingly adaptable. It becomes what it is repeatedly exposed to. If you surround yourself with negativity, you will think negative thoughts. If you surround yourself with possibility, your mind will learn to seek solutions instead of problems. Research confirms this truth. The National Science Foundation estimates that the average person has around 60,000 thoughts every single day, and about 80% of them are negative if left unchecked. 80%. That means if you do nothing, if you allow your environment to feed you by default, your thoughts will drift toward fear, self-doubt, and limitation. The question then is not whether your mind will be fed, but what it will be fed. Will it be fed by forces that drain you or by forces that strengthen you? Choosing your mental diet is an act of self-respect. It is saying, I will not allow my mind to become a dumping ground for fear and mediocrity. It is refusing to let algorithms, advertisers, or angry voices decide what occupies your consciousness. Instead, you become deliberate. You fill your mind with books that stretch your imagination, conversations that nourish your soul, and ideas that challenge you to grow beyond what you thought possible. But this choice requires vigilance. Negative inputs often come disguised as entertainment or necessity. You tell yourself you are just scrolling, but 30 minutes later, you feel anxious and inadequate because you have been comparing your life to carefully curated illusions. You tell yourself you are just listening, but by the end of the conversation, you are carrying someone else's bitterness like a weight on your back. If you want clarity, you cannot feed on chaos. If you want peace, you cannot consume conflict. If you want confidence, you cannot gorge on criticism. The principle is simple: what you feed will grow. Feed fear, and fear will flourish. Feed wisdom, and wisdom will bloom. Feed anger, and anger will consume you. Feed hope, and hope will guide you. Every thought, every story, every word is a choice, one that moves you closer to the life you desire or further away from it. So, ask yourself, what is my mind eating today? Am I nourishing it with truth, beauty, and growth, or am I feeding it with junk, empty calories of distraction and despair? Because in the end, your outer life is nothing more than a reflection of your inner life, and your inner life is built on the thoughts you allow to take root. The garden of the mind is always growing. The only question is, what will you allow to grow there? There is a moment, small, almost invisible, that can change everything. A thought arises in your mind, sharp as a blade, carrying fear, anger, or doubt. In that instant, most people react. They speak words they cannot take back. They make choices they later regret. They allow a single impulse to steer the direction of an entire day, sometimes even a lifetime. But there is another way, a quieter way, a way that few practice, but all can learn: the art of the pause. When a negative thought appears, the instinct is to fight it, to argue with it, to shout it down, to drown it with affirmations or distractions. But fighting gives it strength. It turns the thought into an opponent, and suddenly you are locked in battle with your own mind. The harder you fight, the more real the thought becomes. Instead, allow it to be. Notice it, name it, then pause. Take a breath so deep that it reaches into the chaos and stills it for just a moment. In that breath, ask the simplest of questions. Is this thought useful? Does it serve my highest good? Most of the time, the answer will be no. No, this fear does not serve me. No, this anger will not lead me where I want to go. And when you know the answer is no, let the thought pass, like a dark cloud drifting across an open sky. You do not cling to a cloud, nor do you chase it. You let it move on, because you know the sky remains untouched behind it. So it is with you. You are not the storm of thoughts. You are the sky that holds them. This is not suppression, it is selection. Suppression is force, an attempt to bury what exists. Selection is choice, a calm acknowledgement of what serves and what does not. You are not a prisoner of your mind. You are its gatekeeper, and every pause is a key that unlocks the door to freedom. Think of how many moments in history, in relationships, in personal lives could have been saved by a single pause. A harsh word held back for just one breath, a reckless decision delayed for just one question. The pause seems small, almost too small to matter, yet it holds unimaginable power. It is the space where impulse ends and wisdom begins. Consider athletes standing on the edge of greatness. A big game, a final shot, a world watching. Fear rises like a tide, whispering of failure, shouting of consequences. But the greatest performers do not drown in that tide. They pause. They breathe. They center themselves in that sliver of silence where the mind regains control. They do not let fear decide their fate. That single pause, one breath, one heartbeat, can be the difference between winning and losing. And so it is with life. Every time you pause, you reclaim your power. When anger surges, you pause before you speak. When anxiety presses, you pause before you spiral. When temptation calls, you pause before you act. That pause may last only seconds, but in those seconds, you choose who you are becoming. Because thoughts shape actions, and actions shape destiny. One thought, followed without question, can alter the course of your life. One pause, taken with intention, can set it right again. The pause is not easy at first. It feels unnatural because the world trains us to react instantly, to speak quickly, to decide without reflection. We live in a culture that glorifies speed, but forgets the wisdom of stillness. Yet everything alive grows in silence. Trees in the forest, seeds in the soil, the breath in your own lungs. Silence is not emptiness, it is creation waiting to happen. When you pause, you enter that silence, and in that space, you find clarity that rushing can never give. The next time a thought grips you, remember you have a choice. You can ride the wave of reaction and let it crash into chaos, or you can pause and stand still until the tide recedes. This moment, this breath is yours. Do not waste it. Use it to choose the life you want, the person you wish to become. Because the pause, small and quiet though it seems, is where transformation begins. Imagine the mind as a vast ocean, and your thoughts as waves. Some rise gently, others crash violently, but all are influenced by deeper currents beneath the surface. These currents are your beliefs, your desires, and your visions for the future. If you drift aimlessly without direction, you become a victim of every wave, tossed from one emotion to another, unable to find stability. But if you set a destination, if you choose a shore you long to reach, the currents begin to work for you instead of against you. Control is not the endless war against negative thoughts, it is the quiet mastery of purpose. When you hold a vision so vivid that it ignites your very soul, the storms lose their power. They may rage, but they cannot sway you because your compass is set and your heart knows the way. This is why clarity is not a luxury. It is a lifeline. Without it, life becomes reactionary, a constant struggle against forces that feel stronger than you. With it, those forces become wind in your sails. But clarity does not arrive uninvited, it must be cultivated. You cannot simply hope for it. You must create it. Begin by asking yourself, who do I truly want to become? What kind of life would honor the deepest part of my being? Let the answers rise slowly, for they do not come from the noise of the world, but from the quiet whispers within. And when they come, write them down. Give them shape and language. For what remains unspoken fades into shadow, but what is spoken steps into the light of reality. Once you have named this vision, it must not remain a distant dream. It must live with you every day. Speak it aloud when you wake. Picture it when doubts creep in. Let it become the melody your mind hums unconsciously. The more you return to it, the more real it becomes. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And when you change, the world responds. Your vision becomes a magnet. It does not pull you by force but by resonance. Thoughts that once scattered like leaves in the wind begin to gather in harmony with this future. Decisions that once felt heavy become clear because they are measured against something greater than the moment. This is not fantasy. It is the unseen law of the mind. Where attention flows, energy follows. And where energy flows, life begins to shape itself. Think of those who have risen from places where hope seemed impossible. They were not spared from pain or hardship. They were anchored to something larger than the suffering around them. Oprah Winfrey once stood in the soil of poverty, yet in her heart bloomed a vision so grand that no external storm could uproot it. She declared that you must create the highest, grandest vision possible for your life, because you become what you believe. Her life was not a gift of circumstance, but of unwavering focus on a reality that had not yet manifested. The same law applies to you. If you allow your mind to drift without purpose, it will be pulled into every shadow, every fear, every voice that says you cannot. But if you anchor it to a vision so compelling that it burns brighter than doubt, then even in the darkest night, you will see the light. And that light will lead you forward, not in giant leaps, but in steady steps that reshape your destiny. There will be days when the vision feels far, when the storms are louder than the whispers within. In those moments, do not abandon the path. Return to your vision. Read it, speak it. See it until you feel it in your bones. For a day will come when what was once a distant dream becomes the ground beneath your feet. And when it does, you will realize it was never just about achieving something grand. It was about becoming someone unshakable, someone who refused to live by accident. Your mind is not a prison, it is a kingdom waiting for its ruler. The vision you hold is the crown. Wear it every day, and let the world see what happens when a person chooses not to drift, but to rise. Your life is a reflection of the thoughts you nurture. Change your thoughts, and you rewrite the script of your destiny. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker, and the thinker can choose. Control your thoughts, and you will not just change your day, you will change your life.